I want to give you something on market structure and efficiency of markets. Hopefully I can do this in a way that it will be helpful to you. I think the text does a really good job on this, but I'm hoping to do it fast and hopefully help you with the comprehension. If you have any questions on this when I'm done and you have a chance to look at it, you can certainly give me an email or go into the forum. Couple things. Every firm that's out to try to do something good, provide a service or a product, has cost structure that looks like that. There is their total cost, which start higher, go lower, and then as they become less efficient because they're getting too big, they go up. And the average variable costs do the same thing. And the marginal cost drops down, and then they get more efficient and they begin to climb again. And that is true for every endeavor, whether it be a nonprofit or a profit. Okay. Now, we also talked about supply and demand. The market determines where the price is going to be. The suppliers will choose what level what price levels they will supply what amount of product, and the buyers decide at how much they want to buy at given prices, and where those two intersect is the equilibrium price. Okay, so we've established that. Now let's take a look at the first market structure. In perfect competition, the market demand for the product is so large that it cannot be filled by one firm. There are thousands of firms involved, and a good example would be, for example, corn or any other agricultural product for that matter. They are basically as close to perfect competition as you can get. And so there is a market for corn. The supply and demand curves will determine what that price is. But if you're a farmer, and you cannot affect that price because there are so many competitors who are making the identical same product, you cannot raise your price. You cannot lower your price over that level. If you try to raise it, people won't buy your stuff. They'll buy the other guy's stuff because it's the same. There is no distinguishing characteristics between your corn and the other guy's corn. So you are stuck with that price if you are a farmer. And so in an ideal situation, you will have a group of farmers, thousands of them actually, making corn. And some of them will be more efficient than others and make profits, and some of them will be less efficient and they will be barely hanging in there. But on average, we would have this situation. If I look at what their demand curve looks like, it's going to be horizontal to them, and their marginal revenue curve will be their demand curve. And where marginal revenue equals marginal cost in every situation, that is where profits are maximized. So in the case of the perfect competition, the price is driven to a point where the average cost curve intersects the demand curve. And that brings us to the point of economic profit versus accounting profit. When we are looking at these curves, we're economists, and we are assuming economic costs include all of the dollars that you can count going in and out of the business and the opportunity to have done something else. Okay, so the accounting profit is what's going in and out of the business. And if you have an accounting profit, then the amount of money you take in is greater than the amount of money you paid out. Economic profit says you need to compare that to your best alternative. What else could you have been doing rather than being a corn farmer? And so that is economic profit. And what this graph is depicting, and all the graphs on costs in economics describe economic costs. So when a firm has their average cost curves intersect the price, they are making an accounting profit, which means they can't go into something else and make more money. Their alternative is not any better than what they're currently doing. So they stay in it. Okay? Now, it does vary, and I've shown a couple of examples of where demand curves could hit an individual firm. If here's firm B, they're making an economic profit, they're doing really great. For them, the demand curve compared to their cost curves comes in here, and they are well above the point where they intersect marginal cost is well above their average total cost, they are making a profit. Another firm may be not quite making a profit, but they're at least covering their variable costs. And if they're covering their variable costs, that means they can pay their wages, their workers, and all their suppliers, so they keep operating, hoping that things will get better. But if you're like firm C down here, and the demand curve and the market price is set at such a level that you can no longer compete, your cost curves are such that your costs, even your average variable costs, are above the price, you need to leave. So it is this exit and entering the market that make it efficient. And so we consumers benefit from this. When the price gets a little bit high because of increase in demand, more firms will come back in. So if you're a farmer that left a couple years ago because the price was lower than your cost, maybe because you have out-of-date equipment or something, when the price goes up, you may look at it and say, I can make money now at that price. So when the price goes up because the market demand drives it, you can get back in. And when you get back in, you increase the supply. And when the supply is increased, there is a price decrease, as we saw in our last lesson on supply curves. Okay, so perfect competition is the perfect example of where consumers get the most benefit, because you have the producers producing where their average costs are minimized, and you're getting the best price you can possibly get at that point. And you don't have to be concerned about somebody trying to jack their prices up, because as soon as the prices are jacked up, other people will jump in and the supply will increase and the price will drop back down again. So you are protected as a consumer. So this is the best deal for a consumer right here, the perfect competition. Now, monopoly is the worst deal for a consumer. Now, in this country, there are very few examples of a pure monopoly. Like utilities are regulated, so they don't get to operate like a pure monopoly and just gouge us on electric bills, because there is a commission in every state that controls how much they're allowed to charge. But there are some pure monopolies. In the book, they talk about the diamond mines. They're owned by one company, about 80% of it, so they basically have a virtual monopoly, and they set the price of diamonds. Okay, so in terms of that, you have a downward sloping demand curve now. The curve is downward sloping because the firm, the monopoly firm, can distinguish its product, and it has done that so well that it is the only one supplying it. Alright, and so when you can distinguish your product, you get a downward sloping demand curve, which means your marginal revenue curve slopes downward instead of horizontally like it does in perfect competition. And so when you go to MR equals MC, you go to a point here, come up, and you find that you're operating here where your price is above your average total cost, and you're making an economic profit. You're making more money than you could in any other activity. Not equal to any other activity, more than any other activity. And so when you are in a monopoly situation, the price is way over here, and the quantity delivered is curtailed. Okay, so the producer has his way, and so if this were a perfect competition, they would be operating in here somewhere, at the minimum of their average cost curves. They would be producing at a lower price, and they would be producing more. So the consumers make out better when a market structure for a good is in perfect competition than they do when a market structure is in a monopoly, because the monopolist operates up in here, and he gets more of the value of the exchange. More of the exchange of the good for the money goes into the pocket of the monopolist than is valued by the consumer. So that's the whole argument about efficiency. But remember this, the market structures are created by the demand curve versus the size of the operation to meet the demand. That's what drives the market structure. Now, an oligopoly would be like an automobile firm, and I can't really draw you a graph here as to how they work, because there are 6 or 7, say in the automobile industry, 6 or 7 big firms that fight for market share. They price their products based on what the other firms are pricing. They're trying to get to maintain or increase their market share, and we get protection from that, because in the monopoly market they would just set their prices wherever they want and restrict their output. But in the oligopoly market, they're fighting for a share of the market, so they are coming down in price towards a more fair exchange. Okay, still not as good as perfect competition. Monopolistic competition are barbers and beauty shops and restaurants. There are many, many of them, but unlike the perfect competition, they can distinguish their product. Sometimes the distinguishing feature is nothing more than a location. I mean, I'm not going to drive 50 miles to go get a haircut. I'm going to get a haircut somewhere close to where I live. Now, beauticians are kind of in the same boat. You know, you're not going to go a long, long ways just to get a haircut by a beautician or a barber. So there are many, many firms, just like there are in perfect competition, but they do distinguish their product, even if it's just by location. And because they can distinguish their product, they can make short-term profits. They have a downward sloping demand curve, at least in the short term. But in the long run, if a location is doing really well, a competitor will move in right down the street or in a different plaza, and there'll be another barbershop within a certain mile of yours, and your location advantage will be taken away. So what happens is in monopolistic competition, you end up with the firms in the long run having their price equal to their average cost, which means they are making as much money as they could in their alternative opportunity, but they are not making more than that. They're not making a killing, in other words. So that is good from a consumer standpoint, but it's not as efficient. The price would be lower if they were in perfect competition, but perfect competition is not going to happen because in perfect competition the products have to be identical, and barbers and beauticians do not produce identical products. Alright, so you have to pay a little more, and they are less efficient than if they were in perfect competition. So I hope that that helps you understand this idea of market structures, where they come from, and how some of them provide a better deal for consumers, and some of them provide a better deal for producers. And if you have any questions on any of this, please let me know.